I don't know how to tell you this, but I was fired today.
Nathan Willard's hands trembled as he pressed play on the recording, but his voice came out cold, steady, detached. His wife stood frozen in the doorway, her face twisted in confusion, not yet understanding what she was about to hear. Then her own voice filled the room, crystal clear, intimate, speaking words she thought he'd never hear. I only stayed with him for the money, honestly. Now that that's gone, there's literally no reason to pretend anymore. The color drained from Claire's face like someone had pulled a plug. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Nathan just stared at her, this woman he'd loved for 5 years, and watched her realize that her entire world was about to collapse. Because he'd never been fired at all. He'd been testing her. And she'd failed in the most devastating way possible. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Wherever you are right now, watching from your couch, your car, your quiet corner of the world, I want you to know you're exactly where you need to be. How are you doing today? Really, truly doing? And hey, quick question, have you subscribed to the channel yet? If not, I'd love for you to join our family. We share stories here that cut deep, that heal, that remind us we're not alone in this messy, beautiful thing called life. Go ahead, tap that button. I'll be here when you get back. Now, let me take you into a story that starts with a lie, unravels with whispers, and ends with a truth that changes everything. Nathan Willard had always been the kind of man who believed in loyalty the way some people believed in religion. It wasn't just a value. It was the foundation of everything he built his life upon. His father taught him that a man's word was his bond, that marriage was sacred, that love meant showing up even when things got hard. Especially when things got hard. So when he married Claire Bateman 5 years ago in a small ceremony overlooking the harbor, he meant every word of those vows. For better or worse. In sickness and in health. For richer or poorer. He just never imagined he'd have to test that last part. Nathan worked as a senior project manager at a tech firm downtown, pulling in a comfortable 6-figure salary. Not extravagant, but enough to afford their 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood, enough for Claire to work part-time at a boutique marketing agency, enough for weekend getaways and anniversary dinners, and the kind of life that looked perfect from the outside. But something had shifted in the past year. Something he couldn't quite name. Claire had become distant in ways that were hard to pinpoint. She still kissed him goodbye in the mornings. Still asked about his day over dinner. Still slept on her side of the bed with her back turned to him, which she'd always done. But there was an absence in her eyes now, a hollowness in her smile that made him feel like he was talking to a beautiful stranger wearing his wife's face. He told himself it was stress. Her mother had been sick. Work had been demanding. They were both tired, both stretched thin. Marriage went through seasons, right? This was just a winter they'd eventually thaw from. Then came the night that changed everything. Nathan had been scrolling through social media before bed when he stumbled across an article about relationship loyalty tests. The kind where people faked emergencies or financial troubles to see if their partners would stick around. He'd always thought those tests were cruel, manipulative, the kind of thing insecure people did. But as he lay there in the dark, listening to Claire's steady breathing beside him, something gnawed at his chest. A question he was terrified to answer. Did she love him? Or did she love what he provided? The thought kept him awake until dawn. 3 days later, he made his decision. He would tell Claire he'd been fired. Not forever. Just long enough to see how she'd react. Long enough to know if the woman he loved would stand beside him when the money dried up, when the security vanished, when all that was left was just him. He planned it carefully. He'd continue going to work as usual, but he'd tell her he'd been let go. He'd watch her response. He'd see if she loved Nathan the man, or Nathan the paycheck. It was a Thursday evening when he came home and set the trap. Claire was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for salad, her blonde hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She wore yoga pants and one of his old college shirts, and for a moment, Nathan almost called the whole thing off. She looked so normal, so perfectly like his wife. But he needed to know. Claire, we need to talk. His voice came out heavier than he intended. She glanced up, knife pausing mid-slice. What's wrong? Nathan set his briefcase down slowly, deliberately. He let his shoulders sag. He rubbed his face with both hands, a gesture he'd practiced in the car. I got called into Anderson's office today. Claire set the knife down. And they're downsizing, cutting 15% of the workforce. He paused, letting the words hang in the air between them. I'm out, Claire. They let me go. The silence that followed felt like falling. Claire's hand went to her mouth. Her eyes widened. But there was something in her expression he couldn't quite read. Shock, yes. But also something else. Something that looked almost like calculation. You're fired. Her voice was barely a whisper. Effective immediately. 2 week severance, and that's it. She stood frozen for what felt like an eternity. Then she crossed the kitchen and wrapped her arms around him, her head against his chest. Oh my God, Nathan. I'm so sorry. He held her, feeling her heartbeat against his ribs. Fast. Too fast. We'll figure it out, she murmured. We always do. But when she pulled back, he saw it. Just for a flash. Something dark behind her eyes. Something that looked like fear, but not the kind of fear that comes from loving someone. The kind that comes from losing something valuable. That night, Nathan lay in bed pretending to sleep. Claire tossed and turned beside him for over an hour before finally slipping out from under the covers. He heard her footsteps padding down the hallway, heard the soft click of the guest room door closing. Then he heard her voice. Low and urgent. Nathan got up silently, his heart hammering in his chest. He crept down the hallway, careful to avoid the creaky floorboard near the bathroom. The guest room door was cracked open just enough. I don't know what to do. Claire's voice trembled. He just told me tonight. Silence, as someone responded on the other end. No, I know, but this changes everything. Another pause. Maybe this is my chance. Maybe this is the sign I've been waiting for. Nathan's blood turned to ice. I can't do this anymore, Claire continued, her voice breaking. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. When I'm not happy. When I haven't been happy for so long. His hand gripped the doorframe so hard his knuckles went white. I need to think about this. About what I really want. About whether I can really stay with someone who can't even keep a job. The words hit him like physical blows. He stood there in the dark hallway, listening to his wife of 5 years contemplate leaving him, and realized with devastating clarity that his test had already revealed its answer. Before we dive deeper, let me pause for just a second. If you're new here, hi love. I'm so glad you made it. This story is going to take us through 30 days of truth, betrayal, and ultimately freedom. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss stories that touch the heart, stories that remind you that you deserve people who choose you on your worst days, not just your best ones. Nathan made it back to the bedroom before Claire finished her call. He lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing through every moment of their marriage, searching for the cracks he'd been too blind to see. How long had she felt this way? How long had she been 1 foot out the door, just waiting for an excuse to leave? When Claire finally slipped back into bed an hour later, Nathan kept his breathing steady and even, playing the role of the sleeping husband. She settled onto her side, her back to him as always, and within minutes her breath had evened out into sleep. But Nathan didn't sleep. Not that night. Not really ever again during those 30 days. Because he'd made a decision in those dark hours. He wouldn't confront her. Not yet. He would let this play out. He would see exactly who his wife really was when she thought the money was gone, when she thought the comfortable life was over, when she thought she was free to show her true face. He would give her 30 days. 1 month to prove him wrong. Or to prove him devastatingly right. The next morning, Nathan got up at his usual time. He showered, got dressed in his work clothes, grabbed his briefcase. Claire was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with her coffee, her phone face down beside her mug. Morning, he said, trying to keep his voice normal. She looked up and there it was again. That flash of something he'd never seen before. Resentment? Disgust? He couldn't quite name it, but it lived in the tightness around her mouth, the flatness in her gaze. Where are you going? She asked. Library. Going to update my resume, Start applying for new positions. She nodded slowly. That's good. That's smart. We'll get through this, he said, testing her. Claire's smile didn't reach her eyes. Of course we will. But Nathan heard the lie in her voice as clearly as he'd heard her confession the night before. He kissed her forehead and left, his chest aching with a grief so profound it felt like drowning. This was day 1. He had 29 more to go. Nathan drove to work as he did every morning, the familiar route now feeling like a journey through foreign territory. Everything looked the same. The coffee shop on the corner, where he sometimes grabbed a latte. The intersection where the light always took too long. The parking garage where he'd parked for the last 4 years. But nothing felt the same. He went through the motions at work, attending meetings, responding to emails, managing his team. His colleagues had no idea that at home, he was supposedly unemployed, supposedly scrambling to find his next paycheck, supposedly watching his life fall apart. The performance required him to live 2 lives simultaneously. At the office, he was Nathan Willard, senior project manager, respected and successful. At home, he was Nathan Willard, the fired husband, the financial burden, the man his wife was already planning to leave. The duality was exhausting. When he returned home that evening, he found Claire in the living room, her laptop open, her phone clutched in her hand. She barely looked up when he walked in. How'd it go? She asked, her tone flat. Sent out about a dozen applications. Updated my LinkedIn profile. Reached out to some contacts. He recited the lies smoothly, having practiced them in the car. She turned back to her screen. Nathan stood there for a moment, waiting for something more. A word of encouragement. A touch of reassurance. Anything that suggested they were a team facing this together. But Claire just scrolled through whatever was on her screen, her jaw tight, her shoulders rigid with tension that had nothing to do with concern for him and everything to do with concern for herself. I'm going to make dinner, he said finally. I already ate. She didn't elaborate. Didn't offer to help. Didn't even look at him. Nathan went to the kitchen and made himself a sandwich, the silence of the house pressing down on him like a weight. This was the woman he'd chosen to build a life with. The woman he'd imagined growing old beside. The woman he'd trusted with his heart, his future, his name. And she couldn't even pretend to care that his world had supposedly just collapsed. That night, Claire disappeared into the guest room again around 10:30. Nathan waited 15 minutes, then followed the same path down the hallway, his feet knowing exactly which floorboards to avoid. Her voice drifted through the cracked door, quieter this time, but no less urgent. I know, but I have to be smart about this.
Pause.
No, I can't just leave right now. I need to have a plan. I need to make sure I'm protected. Protected from what? Nathan wanted to scream. From him? From their marriage? From the vows she'd sworn to honor? He's probably going to be unemployed for months. You know how the job market is right now. Her voice took on a bitter edge. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to struggle or worry about money or carry someone who can't pull their weight. Nathan's hands balled into fists at his sides. I just need time to figure out my exit strategy, Claire continued. Time to get my finances in order. Make sure I'm set up. Then I can walk away clean. Exit strategy. The words echoed in Nathan's skull long after Claire had hung up and returned to bed. She wasn't even considering staying. Wasn't even trying to work through this with him. She was already planning her escape, calculating how to leave with maximum benefit to herself. Day 2 revealed something even more painful than day 1. His wife wasn't just indifferent to his supposed crisis. She was actively resentful of it. Angry that his job loss had disrupted her comfortable life, her easy existence. And hey, while you're here, let me ask you something. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you as part of the family. This is a safe space for stories that matter, stories about real human experiences. Go on, I'll wait. Hit that button and come back. We're just getting started. By day 5, the change in Claire was unmistakable. She'd stopped kissing him goodbye. Stopped asking about his day. Stopped pretending at all that she cared about his job search or their future together. She moved through the house like a ghost, present in body, but absent in every way that mattered. She ate meals in the bedroom with the door closed. She left for work early and came home late. She spent hours on her phone, her fingers flying across the screen, her face lit up with an expression Nathan rarely saw anymore. Happiness. But not happiness with him. Happiness despite him. On day 5, Nathan came home from work, maintaining his charade, and found Claire getting ready to go out. She wore a dress he'd never seen before, deep blue and form-fitting, with heels that made her legs look impossibly long. "Going somewhere?" he asked, trying to keep his voice casual. She barely glanced at him as she applied lipstick in the hallway mirror. Out with Emma. Girls' night. Emma was her coworker, her supposed best friend. Nathan had met her a handful of times at company events. Pleasant enough. Always friendly to him. "That sounds nice. What time will you be back?" "Not sure." "Don't wait up." Claire grabbed her purse and headed for the door, moving past him like he was a piece of furniture. "Claire." She paused, her hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. "I love you," Nathan said, putting everything he had into those 3 words. One last test within the test. The silence stretched so long, he thought she might not respond at all. Then, without turning, without even looking at him, she said, "You too," and walked out. Not "I love you too." Not "I love you." Just "you too." Like an afterthought. Like a reflex. Like nothing. Nathan stood in the empty hallway, listening to her car pull out of the driveway, and felt something inside him finally break clean through. He pulled out his phone and opened the tracking app they'd both agreed to install years ago. Not to spy on each other, they'd said. Just for safety. Just so they always knew the other was okay. Now Nathan watched the little blue that represented his wife drive across town, but not toward Emma's apartment in the East Side. Not toward any of the bars or restaurants they'd ever been to together. She drove north, to a neighborhood he didn't recognize, and stopped at an address he'd never seen before. She stayed there for 4 hours. When Claire finally came home just after midnight, Nathan was in bed with the lights off, his phone clutched in his hand, the evidence of her lie burning behind his eyes. She slipped into the guest room without even checking on him. Day 6 brought another phone call. Day 7 brought another late night out. Day 8 brought the smell of cologne on her clothes, a scent that definitely wasn't his. By day 10, Nathan had started documenting everything. Screenshots of her location. Timestamps of her calls. Photos of the receipts he found in her purse for restaurants across town, meals for 2, bottles of wine she'd never mentioned. He was building a case, though he wasn't sure yet what he'd do with it. All he knew was that every day confirmed what that first phone call had revealed. His wife didn't love him. Maybe she never had. Maybe what he'd mistaken for love was really just convenience, comfort, security. Maybe he'd been married to an illusion for 5 years. On day 10, Nathan took a personal risk. He left work early and drove to the address where Claire had spent those 4 hours on day 5. It was a modern apartment complex, upscale and expensive, with a doorman and a lobby that screamed money. He sat in his car across the street, watching, waiting, feeling like a character in a bad movie. Just before 6, a man walked out of the building. Tall, athletic build, wearing an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase. He walked with the kind of confidence that came from never having to doubt himself, never having to worry about job security or mortgage payments or whether his wife actually loved him. The man climbed into a black Mercedes and drove away. Nathan snapped a photo of the license plate. That night, after Claire had once again disappeared into the guest room for her nightly phone call, Nathan sat at his laptop and ran a reverse search on the plate. The car was registered to a Julian Hammond, 38 years old, investment banker, vice president at one of the major firms downtown. Nathan stared at the name on his screen, at the professional headshot that showed a man with perfect teeth and perfect hair and a perfect life that apparently now included Nathan's wife. Day 14 arrived with the weight of revelation. Nathan had spent the past 4 days following a digital trail that made his stomach turn. Julian Hammond wasn't just some random man. He was Claire's client. Or at least, that's how it had started 6 months ago when her boutique marketing agency had taken on his firm for a rebrand campaign. 6 months. The same amount of time Claire had been growing distant. The same amount of time Nathan had been telling himself it was just stress, just a phase, just the normal ebb and flow of marriage. He'd been so stupid, so willfully blind. Nathan sat in his car outside his own house, the engine off, staring at the front door like it belonged to a stranger's home. Inside, his wife was probably getting ready for another evening out. Another lie about girls' night or working late or whatever excuse she'd invented today. His phone buzzed. A text from his actual boss, Anderson, asking if he could take the lead on a new project. A promotion opportunity. More responsibility, significant pay increase. Under any other circumstances, Nathan would have been thrilled. He'd been working toward this for 2 years. Now it just felt hollow. He texted back his acceptance anyway, then deleted the message thread. Claire couldn't see anything that contradicted his unemployment story. Not yet. Not until he was ready. When Nathan finally walked inside, he found Claire in the bedroom, absolutely glowing. She wore a new outfit, another one he'd never seen. Black jeans that hugged her curves, a silk blouse in deep crimson, jewelry that caught the light as she moved. She was humming, actually humming some melody he didn't recognize, a small smile playing at her lips. Another night out? Nathan asked from the doorway. Claire jumped slightly, her hand flying to her chest. For just a second, guilt flashed across her face before she smoothed it away. You scared me.
Sorry.
Didn't mean to. She turned back to the mirror, fixing her hair. Yeah, Emma wants to try that new tapas place downtown. Another lie. Emma had posted on social media an hour ago about staying in with her boyfriend and watching movies. Nathan had checked. Sounds fun. Claire sprayed perfume, the expensive kind she saved for special occasions. The scent filled the room, heavy and floral and completely wrong. Nathan watched her, this woman he'd shared a bed with for 5 years, and tried to remember the last time she'd gotten this dressed up for him. Tried to remember the last time she'd smiled like that in his presence. Tried to remember when exactly she'd stopped being his wife and started being a stranger, wearing a wedding ring. Claire, can we talk for a minute? Her shoulders tensed. I'm actually running late. It'll just take a second. She sighed, the sound heavy with annoyance, but turned to face him. What is it? I know this has been hard. Me being out of work. The stress of money. I know it's not what you signed up for. Nathan kept his voice even, measured. But we're going to be okay. I had 2 promising interviews this week. Things are looking up. He watched her face carefully, looking for relief, for joy, for any sign that his potential return to employment would make her happy. Instead, something that looked almost like disappointment flickered in her eyes. That's great, she said, but her tone said otherwise. Really great, Nathan. I just want you to know that I'm fighting for us. For our life together. That I'm not giving up. Claire's jaw tightened. I know you are. Do you? The question came out sharper than he intended. Because sometimes it feels like you've already checked out. Like you're just waiting for an excuse to leave. Her eyes went wide. That's not fair. Isn't it? You barely talk to me anymore. You spend every night in the guest room. You're always on your phone, always going out, always somewhere else. Nathan took a step closer. Where are you really going tonight, Claire? I told you. To meet Emma. Emma, who's at home with her boyfriend right now. The color drained from Claire's face. What? She posted about it an hour ago. Movie night at home. So, where are you really going? For a long moment, Claire just stared at him, and Nathan saw a dozen emotions cross her face.
Shop.
Anger. Calculation. And finally, defiance. You're tracking my social media now? Checking up on my friends? That's really healthy, Nathan. Answer the question. I don't have to explain myself to you. She grabbed her purse from the bed. I'm going out. I'll be back later. Claire. We'll talk about this tomorrow. She pushed past him, her shoulder hitting his chest. Nathan let her go. He stood in the bedroom, listening to her footsteps down the stairs, the front door slamming, her car starting up. Then he pulled out his phone and opened the tracking app. She drove straight to Julian Hammond's apartment. By the way, if you're listening and feeling this story already, you might as well subscribe. Don't be shy, join us. Because what happens next is going to break your heart before it heals it. Hit that button and stay with me. Day 20 arrived like a funeral. Nathan had spent the past 6 days in a fog of documentation and discovery. He'd hired a private investigator, a woman named Sarah Chen, who came highly recommended and didn't ask unnecessary questions. She'd provided him with photos that made his hands shake. Claire and Julian at restaurants. Claire and Julian walking through a park, his arm around her waist. Claire and Julian kissing in the parking garage of his apartment building, her hands in his hair, her body pressed against his like Nathan didn't exist at all. Every image was a knife wound. Every timestamp was proof of a betrayal so deep it rewrote their entire marriage. But Nathan kept going to work, kept maintaining his cover story at home, kept watching his wife pretend she wasn't actively planning to leave him for another man. The cognitive dissonance was making him insane. On day 20, Claire made a mistake. A big one. Nathan had come home early, claiming a headache from his supposed day of job hunting at the library. He'd actually left work after closing a major deal, the kind that would come with a significant bonus. But Claire didn't know that. Claire thought he was unemployed, desperate, struggling. Claire thought he was weak. He found her in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, her back to the doorway. She was laughing at something, her voice light and musical in a way it never was with him anymore. Nathan stood perfectly still in the hallway, just out of sight. "No, I can't tonight, baby. He's actually home for once." Claire's voice dropped lower, more intimate. "I know, I miss you too. This has been torture." "Baby." She called him baby. Nathan's chest constricted so hard, he thought his ribs might crack. "I'm trying," Claire continued. "I really am. But living this lie every day is killing me. Coming home to him, pretending everything's fine when all I can think about is you." The words landed like bullets. "I know I need to make a decision. I know." A pause. Then Claire's voice went cold in a way Nathan had never heard before. "But you have to understand my position. I can't just walk away with nothing. We have a house, joint accounts, 5 years of marriage. I need to protect myself financially. Protection. Always protection." Like Nathan was some kind of threat instead of the man who'd loved her, provided for her, built a life with her. "Once I figure out the logistics, I'll tell him. I'll end it clean. But right now, with him being unemployed, it's actually the perfect time. I can claim I need financial security, that I can't handle the stress. It gives me a reason that doesn't make me look like the bad guy." Nathan felt something inside him die. Some last vestige of hope that maybe there was an explanation, maybe there was a misunderstanding, maybe his wife wasn't actually as cruel as she seemed. But there it was. In her own words, she was using his supposed unemployment as cover for her affair, as justification for abandoning him, as a way to paint herself as the victim when she was the one who destroyed everything. "I do love you," Claire said softly. "You know I do. This isn't about him anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. I think I only stayed with Nathan for stability, if I'm being honest. For the life he could give me. But now that that's gone." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "Now, there's literally no reason to stay. You make me feel alive, Julian. You make me feel things I've never felt before." "Julian." She'd said his name. Nathan stumbled backward, his hand hitting the wall, making a soft thud. Claire spun around, her eyes going wide. "I have to go," she said quickly into the phone. "I'll call you later." She ended the call and faced Nathan, her expression cycling through shock, fear, and finally settling on defensive anger. "How long have you been standing there?" Nathan couldn't speak. His throat had closed up, his lungs had forgotten how to work. He just stared at his wife, at this woman he'd given everything to, and saw a stranger. "Nathan, you're having an affair." His voice came out flat, dead. Claire's face hardened. "You were eavesdropping on my private conversation." "You're having an affair," he repeated, louder this time. "And you're using my unemployment as an excuse to leave." "That's not." She stopped, seemed to realize there was no point in denying it. "You don't understand." "Then explain it to me." Nathan pushed off the wall, taking a step toward her. Explain how the woman I married, the woman who promised to love me in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, is planning to abandon me because I lost my job. Explain how you're sleeping with someone else while still living in our house, wearing your wedding ring, lying to my face every single day. Claire's eyes flashed. You want me to explain? Fine. I'll explain. I'm not happy, Nathan. I haven't been happy for a long time. This marriage feels like a cage, and you losing your job just made me realize I don't have to stay trapped anymore. A cage? The word felt like acid on his tongue. I'm a cage. Yes. She threw her hands up. You're steady, you're reliable, you're safe. You're everything a woman is supposed to want. But you know what you're not? Exciting, passionate, alive. Being with you feels like drowning in beige. Each word was a slap. And Julian? Nathan forced himself to ask. He's exciting enough for you? Claire's expression softened in a way that made Nathan want to vomit. He makes me feel beautiful, desired, like I'm the most important person in the world. When was the last time you made me feel that way, Nathan? I told you I loved you 5 days ago. You couldn't even say it back. Because I don't. The confession exploded out of her. I don't love you, Nathan. Maybe I never did. Maybe I just loved the idea of you, the security of you, the easy, comfortable life you could give me. But that's not enough anymore. Not when I know what real passion feels like. The room tilted. The floor seemed to shift beneath Nathan's feet. So you never loved me. He said it like he needed to hear the words out loud to make them real. Our entire marriage was a lie. Claire had the decency to look away. I tried. I really did. I tried to make myself feel what I was supposed to feel. But I can't force something that isn't there. Nathan laughed, a harsh, broken sound. And you couldn't have told me this before? You had to wait until I was vulnerable, until I needed you most, to reveal that you're not capable of love. That's not fair. Fair. Nathan's voice rose. You want to talk about fair? I've spent 5 years building a life with you, planning a future with you, being faithful to you, loving you, showing up for you every single day. And you've been counting down the minutes until you could leave. Using me, lying to me, cheating on me. And now you want to lecture me about what's fair? Tears streamed down Claire's face, but Nathan felt no sympathy. Only rage. Only grief, so profound it felt like his body was collapsing in on itself. I didn't mean for this to happen, Claire whispered. Yes, you did. You chose this. Every secret phone call. Every lie. Every time you kissed him while still wearing my ring. You chose all of it. Claire wiped her eyes, and when she looked at him again, her expression had gone cold. You know what? You're right. I did choose it. Because staying with you felt like dying. At least with Julian, I feel alive. Then go. Nathan pointed toward the door. Get out. Go be alive with him. I'm done. Nathan. Get out. But Claire didn't move. She crossed her arms over her chest, her jaw set. This is my house too. And legally, you can't just kick me out. The audacity of it struck Nathan like a physical blow. Even now, even caught in her betrayal, she was thinking about logistics, about protection, about what she could take from him. Unbelievable, Nathan breathed. You're actually standing there after everything you just said, trying to claim rights to our house? I have nowhere to go tonight. You have Julian's apartment. I'm sure he'd love to have you. Claire's face flushed. I'm not ready to tell him yet. I need time to. To what? Plan your next move? Figure out how to maximize what you can take from me. Nathan felt something shift inside him. Something cold and clear and final. You know what, Claire? Stay. Sleep in the guest room like you have been for weeks. But tomorrow morning, I want you gone. I want divorce papers drawn up. I want this over. Nathan, we should talk about this when we're both calm. I am calm. And he was. Suddenly, terrifyingly calm. I'm calmer than I've been in weeks. Because now I know the truth. Now I know exactly who you are. And I don't have to wonder anymore if my wife actually loves me. He turned and walked toward the stairs, his legs somehow still working despite feeling like they were made of glass. "Where are you going?" Claire called after him. "To pack your things. Save you the trouble." He didn't wait for her response. He climbed the stairs, walked into their bedroom, pulled out her suitcases from the closet, and began methodically removing her clothes from the drawers. If you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, don't break my heart like that. Tap the button. Let's keep growing together. Because we're about to reach the moment where everything changes. Where Nathan finally reveals the truth. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. Nathan didn't sleep that night. He lay in the guest room, the room where Claire had spent weeks whispering her betrayals into her phone, and stared at the ceiling until dawn broke through the curtains. Claire had locked herself in their bedroom that was no longer theirs, that would never be theirs again. Day 21 felt like the longest day of his life. Nathan went to work in a daze, going through the motions of meetings and emails while his mind replayed every word from the night before. Every confession. Every cruel truth. By lunch, his assistant had asked him 3 times if he was feeling all right. "Just tired," he'd said, which wasn't entirely a lie. But something had crystallized in him overnight. A decision. A plan. He'd spent 20 days testing his wife's loyalty, documenting her betrayal, watching her reveal exactly who she was when she thought he had nothing to offer. He had recordings of her phone calls, thanks to a voice-activated recorder he'd placed in the guest room on day 7. He had photos from the private investigator. He had location data, receipts, text message screenshots that Sarah Chen had managed to obtain through methods Nathan didn't ask about. He had everything he needed. But more than that, he had something Claire didn't know about. Something that would make her betrayal even more devastating when she finally learned the truth. The promotion. The raise. The 6-figure bonus that had just cleared his account 3 days ago. The news that his company was expanding and he'd been selected to lead an entire new division, essentially doubling his salary. Nathan Willard wasn't unemployed. He'd never been unemployed. He was more successful now than he'd ever been in his entire career. And his wife had chosen to leave him anyway. By the time Nathan returned home that evening, he'd made peace with what needed to happen next. He'd already contacted a divorce attorney that morning, a sharp woman named Patricia Thornton who'd listened to his story with a mixture of sympathy and professional detachment. "With this much documentation," she'd said, "we can make this very straightforward. Infidelity is grounds for fault divorce in this state. She'll have a hard time claiming she deserves half of everything when she's the one who violated the marriage contract." Nathan had signed the retainer agreement before lunch. Now, walking into his house, he found Claire exactly where he'd left her that morning. Sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug, her eyes red and swollen. She looked up when he entered, and for just a moment, Nathan saw something that might have been regret. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "I agree." Nathan set his briefcase down and pulled out his phone. "But first, I need to tell you something." Claire's brow furrowed. "What?" "I wasn't fired." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Claire blinked. "What?" "I was never fired. I've been going to work every single day for the past 3 weeks. I lied to you." Nathan kept his voice steady, controlled. "I told you I lost my job to see how you'd react. To see if you'd stand by me when things got hard. To see if you actually loved me, or if you just loved what I could provide." The color drained from Claire's face. "You what?" "I tested you, Claire. And you failed spectacularly." She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You tested me? You lied to me about losing your job just to see what I'd do." "Yes." "That's insane." Her voice pitched higher. "That's manipulative and cruel and what? Worse than having an affair? Worse than planning to leave me while pretending everything was fine? Worse than telling your boyfriend that you never actually loved me." Nathan pulled out his phone and opened a recording app. "Worse than this." He pressed play. Claire's voice filled the kitchen, clear as crystal. "I think I only stayed with Nathan for stability, if I'm being honest. For the life he could give me. But now that that's gone, now there's literally no reason to stay." Claire's face went white as snow. Nathan let it play. Let her hear her own words. Let her hear herself talking about Julian, about leaving, about how their entire marriage had been a comfortable lie. When the recording ended, the silence in the room was deafening. "How long?" Claire whispered. "How long have you been recording me?" "Since day 7. When I heard you on the phone the first time, talking about how this was your chance to leave. I've recorded every conversation since then." Nathan pocketed his phone. "I also hired a private investigator. I have photos of you and Julian. I have proof of every lie you've told, every time you said you were with Emma when you were really at his apartment." Claire sank back into her chair, her hands shaking. "Oh my God. I gave you 30 days, Claire. 30 days to prove me wrong. 30 days to show me that you'd love me even without money, even without security, even when things got hard. And instead, you proved exactly what I was afraid of." Nathan's voice cracked despite his best efforts. "You don't love me. You probably never did. You love what I represent. The house, the lifestyle, the comfortable existence. But the actual man? The person I am? You can't even stand to be in the same room with me." Tears streamed down Claire's face. "That's not true." "It is true. I heard you say it. Multiple times. In multiple ways." Nathan pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "You want to know the really tragic part? If you'd just talked to me, if you'd been honest about being unhappy, we could have worked on it. We could have gone to counseling, tried to fix things, figured out if this marriage was worth saving. But you didn't give me that chance. You went straight to another man's bed while still pretending to be my wife. I'm sorry." Claire's voice was barely audible. "I'm so sorry, Nathan. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "Yes, you did. You chose all of it. Every single decision was yours. What are you going to do?" She looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes, and Nathan saw fear there now. Real fear. "I'm divorcing you. I already have an attorney. She'll be sending over papers by the end of the week." Nathan stood up. "And just so you know, with all this evidence of infidelity, you're not getting half of anything. You're getting exactly what you deserve, which is nothing." "Nathan, please. Can't we just talk about this?" "There's nothing left to talk about. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." He started toward the stairs, then paused and turned back. "Oh, and one more thing. That job I supposedly lost? I actually just got promoted. Significant raise, big bonus, company car, the works. In fact, I'm making more money now than I ever have. So, congratulations, Claire. You left me right when my career hit its peak. I'm sure Julian will be thrilled to know you're available now." The look of absolute devastation on her face should have given him satisfaction. Should have felt like justice. Instead, it just felt empty. Nathan climbed the stairs to what used to be their bedroom and closed the door behind him. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, and finally let himself feel the full weight of what had just happened. His marriage was over. The woman he'd loved was a stranger. 5 years of his life had been built on a foundation of sand. But at least now he knew the truth. At least now he could move forward without wondering, without doubting, without hoping for something that had never really existed in the first place. Before we go on, quick question. Are you subscribed? If not, go ahead and fix that for me. I promise, I'll keep the stories coming. And this one, we're just getting to the part where Nathan rises from the ashes. Stay with me. The next morning, Nathan woke to silence. A heavy, oppressive silence that pressed down on him like a physical weight. He got up, showered, dressed for work in his usual routine. But when he opened the bedroom door, he found Claire sitting on the floor in the hallway, her back against the wall, her knees pulled to her chest. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. Her hair was tangled, her face puffy and pale, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. "Claire, what are you doing?" She looked up at him with bloodshot eyes. "We need to talk. Really talk. Please." Nathan checked his watch. "I have a meeting at 9. "Nathan, please. Just give me 5 minutes." Against his better judgment, he sat down on the top stair. Not next to her. Just close enough to hear whatever she needed to say. Claire took a shaky breath. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you in ways I can't take back. But I need you to understand that I'm not the monster you think I am. Then what are you? I'm a person who made terrible choices, who got confused and scared and stupid. She wiped at her eyes. Meeting Julian, it was like this escape from reality. This fantasy where I could be someone different, someone exciting. It wasn't about you not being enough. It was about me not knowing who I was anymore. Nathan listened, his expression neutral. He'd heard enough apologies in his life to know when someone was sorry they got caught versus sorry for what they'd done. I never meant to fall into an affair, Claire continued. It started as just friendly conversations at work, then coffee meetings, then lunches. And somewhere along the way, I crossed a line I knew I shouldn't cross, but I convinced myself it was okay because I was so unhappy. And whose fault was that unhappiness, Claire? Because from where I'm sitting, I gave you everything. A home, security, partnership, love. What more did you need? I don't know. She pulled at her hair in frustration. That's what's so messed up about this. You did everything right. You were the perfect husband on paper. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling anything for you and I didn't know how to fix it, so I just ran away instead. To another man. Yes. To another man who made me feel things I hadn't felt in years. Things I thought were dead. She looked at him with desperate eyes. But Nathan, after last night, after everything came out, I realized something. Julian isn't real. He's a fantasy. He's the fun and excitement without any of the real stuff, the hard stuff, the stuff that actually matters. And you're realizing this now? After you've already destroyed our marriage? I know the timing is terrible. I know I don't deserve another chance. But I'm asking for one anyway. Claire crawled closer to him, reaching for his hand. We can get past this. We can go to counseling, work through it, rebuild what we had. Nathan pulled his hand away. What we had was based on a lie. You just admitted you haven't felt anything for me in years. You can't rebuild something that never existed in the first place. That's not true. We had good times. We had happy moments. Our wedding day, our honeymoon, all those Sunday mornings making breakfast together. Stop. Nathan stood up. Don't try to rewrite history now that you know I have money again. Don't pretend you want to work on this marriage when we both know the only reason you're asking is because you found out I'm not actually struggling. Claire's face flushed. That's not why. Isn't it? 24 hours ago, you were ready to walk away. You were planning your exit strategy, figuring out how to leave me with maximum benefit to yourself. But now that you know I got promoted instead of fired, suddenly you want to fight for us. Nathan shook his head. I'm not stupid, Claire. I see exactly what this is. You're wrong. Yes, finding out you still have your job changes things, but not in the way you think. It makes me realize how badly I messed up. How much I threw away, because I was too blind to see what I had. What you had was a comfortable life, a provider, a safety net. And the moment you thought that safety net was gone, you couldn't get away fast enough. Nathan started down the stairs. Now that you know the net is still there, you want to climb back in. But that's not love, Claire. That's just opportunism. Nathan, wait. She scrambled to her feet, following him down. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you. Give me a chance to prove that I can be the wife you deserve. Let me show you that I can change. Nathan turned at the bottom of the stairs to face her. You want to prove something to me? Then answer this honestly. If I really had been fired, if I really was unemployed and struggling, would you still be standing here asking for another chance? Or would you be at Julian's apartment right now, telling him you're finally free? The hesitation before she answered told him everything he needed to know. I want to say I would, Claire whispered. But I don't know. And that's what scares me. I don't know who I've become. At least she was being honest. Finally. Then figure it out, Nathan said. Figure out who you are and what you actually want. But do it somewhere else. Because I'm done being your backup plan. Nathan. No. His voice was firm now, final. No more conversations. No more explanations. No more second chances. You made your choice 20 days ago when you started planning your exit. You made it every time you lied to my face. You made it every time you went to his apartment instead of working on our marriage. And now I'm making mine. He grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. I love you, Claire called after him, her voice breaking. I know I don't deserve to say it, I know you don't believe me, but I do. I love you, Nathan. He paused with his hand on the doorknob, his back still to her. If you loved me, you would have been there when you thought I had nothing. But you weren't. So whatever you think you feel right now, that's not love. That's just regret. And he walked out, closing the door on 5 years of his life. Day 25 arrived with an unexpected visitor. Nathan was at home that Saturday afternoon, starting the process of boxing up Claire's remaining belongings. She'd taken her essentials and moved to a hotel 3 days ago after he'd made it clear she couldn't stay in the house anymore. His attorney had advised him to keep everything civil, documented, legal. So Nathan packed her things carefully, methodically, with none of the anger or grief he'd felt just days before. He was numb now. Functionally numb. Moving through his days like an automaton, working, sleeping, existing. The doorbell rang just after 2. Nathan opened the door to find a man standing on his porch. Tall, athletic, expensive suit. Perfect hair. Perfect teeth. Julian Hammond. Can I help you? Nathan kept his voice neutral, though his hands clenched into fists at his sides.
I'm Julian.
I think you know who I am. His voice was smooth, confident. The voice of a man who'd never been told no in his life. I know exactly who you are. What are you doing at my house? I wanted to talk to you, man to man. Julian had the audacity to look uncomfortable. Can I come in? Every instinct screamed at Nathan to slam the door in his face. But curiosity won out. He wanted to see what kind of man his wife had thrown away their marriage for. You have 5 minutes. Nathan stepped aside. Julian walked into the living room, his eyes scanning the space like he was cataloging everything. Looking for signs of wealth, probably. Evaluating what Claire was giving up. Nice place, Julian said. Cut the small talk. Why are you here? Julian turned to face him, and Nathan saw something unexpected in his expression. Guilt, maybe. Or shame. Claire came to see me 2 days ago. She was upset.
Crying.
She told me everything. Everything.
About the test.
About how you were never actually fired. About the recordings and the divorce. Julian shifted his weight. About how she asked you for another chance, and you said no. And you're here to what? Defend her? Plead her case?
No.
Julian looked down at his shoes. I'm here to tell you that I ended things with her. That caught Nathan off guard. What? I broke up with her. Told her I couldn't see her anymore. Julian met his eyes. Because she's in love with you, man. She's completely in love with you, and I'm not going to be the guy who stands in the way of that. Nathan laughed, harsh and bitter. She has a funny way of showing love. Sleeping with you. Planning to leave me. Telling you she never actually loved me in the first place. I know all of that. And I'm not excusing what she did or what we did. Julian ran a hand through his perfect hair, messing it up for the first time. But in the past few days, watching her fall apart, hearing her talk about you constantly, seeing how destroyed she is by the thought of losing you for real, man, that's not someone who doesn't care. That's someone who screwed up the best thing in her life and is terrified she can't fix it. Maybe she should have thought about that before she betrayed me. You're right. Absolutely right. She should have. Julian took a step closer. But people make mistakes, Nathan. Huge, terrible, unforgivable mistakes. The question is whether you're the kind of man who can look past those mistakes and see the person underneath. The person underneath is someone who only wants me when I have money to offer. Someone who is ready to walk away the second she thought I was struggling. Is it though? Julian challenged. Or is she someone who got scared and confused and made catastrophically bad choices, but who genuinely loves you anyway? How would you even know? You've been sleeping with her for months. You're not exactly an objective observer. Julian's jaw tightened. You're right. I'm not.
But I'm also not blind.
When Claire talks about you, her whole face changes. When she tells stories about your life together, she lights up in a way she never did when she was with me. I was the escape, Nathan. The fantasy. But you're the real thing. You're the person she actually wants, even if it took her way too long to figure that out. Nathan wanted to believe him. Some small, pathetic part of him wanted desperately to believe that Claire actually loved him, that this wasn't all just about money and security and comfort. But the recordings played in his head. Her voice, cold and calculating, talking about exit strategies and financial protection. It doesn't matter, Nathan said finally. Even if she does love me, even if she genuinely regrets what happened, it's too late. She destroyed the trust. She killed the marriage. You can't come back from that. Can't you? Julian asked quietly. I mean, you literally set up an elaborate test specifically to see if she'd leave you when things got hard. That's not the action of a man who doesn't care anymore. That's the action of a man who's terrified of losing someone he loves. The observation hit too close to home. I need you to leave. Nathan walked toward the door. Julian followed, but paused in the doorway. I'm not saying you should take her back. That's your decision, and honestly, after what she did, I'd understand if you never spoke to her again. But I am saying that she loves you, for whatever that's worth. And she's going to have to live with what she did for the rest of her life. Good. She should. Julian nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry.
For my part in this.
For pursuing a married woman. For not having the decency to stop before it went this far. You seem like a good guy, and you didn't deserve any of this.
No.
I didn't. Settle in, get comfortable, and if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. You're safe here. This is a space where we face hard truths together, where we work through betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. Don't leave me now. We're almost to the end. After Julian left, Nathan stood in his empty living room and let himself feel everything he'd been pushing down for days. The anger, the grief, the bone-deep exhaustion of loving someone who'd hurt him so profoundly. But underneath all of that, something else stirred. Something he didn't want to acknowledge but couldn't ignore.
Doubt.
What if Julian was right? What if Claire really did love him? What if she'd just been confused and scared and stupid? And what if walking away now meant throwing away something that could still be saved? His phone buzzed. A text from Claire. I'm not asking for another chance anymore. I'm not asking you to forgive me or take me back. I just want you to know that I'm sorry.
For everything.
And that I hope someday you find someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. Even if it's not me. Nathan stared at the message for a long time. Then he made a decision. Day 30 arrived on a Tuesday. Nathan sat in his attorney's office, the divorce papers spread out in front of him. All he had to do was sign. One signature, and his marriage would officially be over. Claire had already signed her copy. She'd agreed to everything. No contest, no fight, no demands for half of anything. She'd even signed away her right to alimony, which Patricia had been shocked by. Most spouses don't do this, his attorney had said. Especially when there's this much money involved. She's essentially walking away with nothing. She doesn't want anything from me, Nathan had replied. She just wants it to be over. Now, with a pen in his hand and freedom just one signature away, Nathan hesitated. He thought about the past 30 days. About the test he designed to catch his wife in betrayal. About every lie she'd told, every secret phone call, every moment she'd chosen Julian over him. But he also thought about 5 years of marriage. 5 years of Sunday morning breakfasts and inside jokes and lazy afternoons watching movies on the couch. 5 years of building a life together, dreaming together, being partners. Had all of that been fake? Or had it been real once, before everything fell apart? Nathan set down the pen. I need to do something before I sign this, he said. Patricia raised an eyebrow. What? I need to talk to my wife. One last time.
For real this time.
No games, no tests, no recordings. Just two people having an honest conversation about what went wrong. Nathan, I advise against. I know all the legal reasons why this is a bad idea. But I can't sign these papers without at least trying to understand. without giving her a chance to explain when she doesn't think she has anything to gain from it. Patricia sighed but nodded. It's your decision. But be careful. Don't let her manipulate you into something you'll regret. She won't, because this isn't about giving her another chance. It's about giving myself closure. Nathan left the attorney's office and drove to the hotel where Claire had been staying. He texted her from the parking lot.
I'm downstairs. Can we talk?
The response came immediately. Room 412. His hands shook as he rode the elevator up. 4th floor. Down the hall. Room 412. He knocked. Claire opened the door, and Nathan barely recognized her. She'd lost weight, her face gaunt and pale. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. She wore sweatpants and a t-shirt, no makeup, no jewelry. She looked broken. Come in, she said quietly. The hotel room was small and depressing. A queen bed, a desk, a chair. Claire's suitcase sat open on the floor, clothes spilling out like she'd given up on the pretense of unpacking. I wasn't expecting to see you, Claire said, perching on the edge of the bed. Nathan took the chair. I'm supposed to sign the divorce papers today. She nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I know. I signed mine yesterday. But I can't do it until I understand something. What? Did you ever love me? Nathan leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I don't want the answer you think I want to hear. I don't want excuses or explanations. I just want the truth. At any point in our 5 years together, did you actually love me? Claire was quiet for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Yes. When? In the beginning. When we first met. When everything was new and exciting and I couldn't believe someone like you wanted someone like me. She wiped at her eyes. You were kind and smart and stable in a way that made me feel safe. And I loved you for that. I really did. And then life got comfortable, routine, predictable. And somewhere in that comfort, I lost myself. I stopped being the person I wanted to be and became just your wife, just the woman who lived in your house and shared your life but didn't have anything of her own. She looked at him with red, swollen eyes. That's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't know how to tell you I was drowning in our perfect life. Nathan absorbed that, turning it over in his mind. So you found Julian.
So, I found Julian. Or he found me.
And he made me feel exciting again. Desirable. Like I was more than just someone's wife. Claire's voice broke. But it was all an illusion. Because the things I felt with him weren't real. They were just adrenaline and guilt and the thrill of doing something forbidden. And what about what you felt for me? Was that real? It was real in the beginning. Then it became comfortable.
Then it became,
I don't know. Background noise. She shook her head. But Nathan, watching you walk away from me, watching our marriage end, knowing I caused all of this, it made me realize what I actually lost. And yeah, maybe I didn't appreciate it when I had it. Maybe I took you for granted. But I do love you. I think I always did. I just forgot how to feel it. That's not good enough. Nathan's voice was steady but firm. Love isn't something you forget how to feel. Love is a choice you make every single day. To show up, to be faithful, to work through the hard stuff instead of running away to someone easier. I know. You chose wrong, Claire. Every single day for months, you chose wrong. And now you want me to believe you've changed? That you've figured out what love really is? Based on what? Regret? Fear of losing me? The realization that Julian wasn't who you thought he was? Based on the fact that I can't sleep anymore, that I can't eat, that every time I close my eyes, I see your face when you played those recordings. When you realized I'd betrayed you. Claire stood up, her whole body shaking. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I don't deserve another chance. But I love you, Nathan. And I will spend the rest of my life regretting that I didn't realize it until it was too late. Nathan looked at this woman he'd married 5 years ago. This woman who'd been his partner, his companion, his wife. This woman who'd shattered his trust and broken his heart and proved that she only wanted him when he could provide for her. Except that wasn't quite true, was it? Because she'd signed the divorce papers asking for nothing. She'd agreed to walk away with nothing. Even now, knowing he had money, knowing he was more successful than ever, she wasn't asking for half of it. She wasn't demanding alimony or fighting for the house. She was just asking for forgiveness she knew she didn't deserve. "I believe you love me," Nathan said finally. "Or, at least, I believe you think you do. But love without trust is just torture. And Claire, I don't trust you anymore. I don't know if I ever can again." She nodded, tears falling freely now. "I understand. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're asking me to forgive months of lies and betrayal based on a few weeks of regret. You're asking me to forget that you were planning to leave me when you thought I had nothing. You're asking me to rebuild a marriage with someone who couldn't even pretend to support me through hard times. I'm not asking you to forget any of that. I know what I did. I know who I was during those 30 days, and I hate myself for it." Claire's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "But I'm also asking you to see who I'm trying to become now. Someone who takes responsibility. Someone who owns her mistakes. Someone who knows the difference between comfort and love." "It's too late for that, is it?" She looked at him with desperate eyes. "Because you're here, Nathan. You came to see me before signing the papers. You could have just ended it without this conversation, but you didn't. So maybe some part of you still loves me too. Maybe some part of you wants to believe we can fix this." Before we continue, can I ask a tiny favor? Hit that subscribe button. It means more than you know, because this is where everything comes together. Where Nathan has to make the hardest decision of his life. And you need to be here to see how it ends. And she was right. Damn her, she was right. Nathan did still love her. Underneath all the anger and hurt and betrayal, some stubborn part of him still loved the woman she'd been in the beginning. Still loved the idea of who they could have been together if she'd just been honest, if she'd just communicated, if she'd just chosen him. But love wasn't enough. It never had been. "I came here for closure," Nathan said, standing up. "To understand why you did what you did. And now I do. You were unhappy and confused and made terrible choices instead of talking to me about it. But understanding doesn't equal forgiveness, Claire. And forgiveness doesn't equal reconciliation. So that's it? We're really over." Nathan looked at her one last time. This woman who'd been his whole world for 5 years. This woman who destroyed everything they built because she couldn't communicate, couldn't be honest, couldn't choose him when it mattered most. "Yeah," he said softly. "We're really over." He walked toward the door, his hand on the knob, ready to close this chapter of his life forever. "Nathan, wait." He paused but didn't turn around. "If you could go back," Claire said, her voice thick with tears, "knowing everything that would happen, would you still marry me? Or would you have walked away from the beginning?" It was a fair question. A devastating question. Nathan thought about their wedding day. About honeymoon in Greece. About Sunday morning breakfasts and anniversary dinners and all those quiet, ordinary moments that had made up their life together. Had it all been worthless? Had it all been a lie? "I don't know," he said honestly. "Part of me wants to say no. That I'd save myself the pain. But another part knows that loving you, even though it ended like this, taught me who I am. What I deserve. What I won't settle for ever again." He finally turned to look at her. "So maybe I would marry you again. Just so I could learn that lesson. Just so I could become the man I am now." "And who is that?" "Someone who knows his worth. Someone who won't be anyone's backup plan ever again." Nathan opened the door. "Goodbye, Claire." "Goodbye, Nathan." He walked out of room 412, down the hallway into the elevator, through the lobby, to his car. And he didn't look back. Not even once. 3 months later, Nathan Willard stood in his new office on the 23rd floor of the Meridian Tower, looking out over the city's skyline. His city. The place where he'd built his career, where he'd married and divorced, where he'd learned the hardest lessons of his life. The divorce had been finalized 6 weeks ago. Quick and clean, just like Patricia had promised. Claire had taken her personal belongings and nothing else. No fight, no drama, no last-minute demands. She'd simply signed the papers and disappeared from his life as completely as if their 5 years together had never happened. Almost. Because Nathan still thought about her sometimes. Late at night when the apartment was too quiet. Early in the morning when he made coffee for one instead of two. In those in-between moments when memory ambushed him with images of who they used to be. But the pain had dulled. The sharp edges of betrayal had worn down into something more manageable. Something he could carry without it breaking him. Mr. Willard, his assistant, Jennifer, knocked on the open door. Your 2 o'clock is here.
Thanks, Yen.
Send them in. Nathan turned from the window as 3 people entered his office. His new team. Bright, ambitious, hungry to prove themselves in the division he'd been tasked with building from the ground up.
This was his life now.
Work, achievement, success. Building something that belonged entirely to him, that couldn't be taken away or betrayed or destroyed by anyone else's choices. It was a good life. Not the life he'd imagined 3 months ago when he was still married, still believing in partnership and forever. But a good life, nonetheless. The meeting ran long, as first meetings always did. By the time Nathan wrapped up and sent his team on their way, it was nearly 6. He packed up his briefcase, said goodbye to Jennifer, and headed for the elevator. His phone buzzed as he waited. A text from his brother, Ryan. Still coming to dinner tomorrow? Mom's asking. Nathan smiled and typed back. Wouldn't miss it. Family dinners had become a regular thing since the divorce. His mother had been devastated when she heard about Claire, but she'd rallied quickly, determined to make sure her son knew he was loved and supported. You're going to find someone even better, she'd told him. Someone who sees your value and never takes it for granted. Nathan wasn't sure he believed in finding someone else. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. But he was open to the possibility.
Someday.
The elevator arrived, and Nathan stepped in, pressing the button for the parking garage. The doors started to close, then suddenly stopped as someone called out. Hold the elevator. Nathan pressed the door open button as a woman rushed in, slightly breathless, carrying a messenger bag and a coffee cup that was definitely too full. Thank you so much, she said, flashing him a grateful smile. I'm always running late on Tuesdays. No problem. She pressed the button for the parking garage, same as him, then settled back against the wall. Nathan noticed she was around his age, with dark hair pulled into a professional ponytail and warm brown eyes that crinkled when she smiled. She caught him looking and smiled again. Long day. You could say that. You? The longest. But also kind of exciting? I just accepted a new position, and I'm both thrilled and terrified. She laughed. Sorry, I'm oversharing with a complete stranger. Don't apologize. Congratulations on the new job. Thanks. I'm Sophie, by the way. Sophie Monroe. Nathan. Nathan Willard. The elevator continued its descent, and in that small enclosed space, Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in months. Not attraction exactly, though Sophie was undeniably pretty. Something lighter. Something like possibility. What floor are you on? Sophie asked. I mean, if you work in this building, which you probably do since you're in the elevator. I'm on the 18th. 23rd. Just moved in last week. Oh, you're one of the new executives everyone's been talking about. The guy who's building the innovation division. Sophie's eyes lit up. That's really impressive. It's a lot of work. The best things usually are. The elevator dinged as they reached the parking level. The doors opened, and they both stepped out into the concrete expanse of cars and fluorescent lighting. Well, this is me, Sophie said, gesturing vaguely toward the rows of vehicles. Thanks again for holding the elevator. Anytime. She started to walk away, then paused and turned back. This is going to sound incredibly forward, but would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? I'm new to the building and don't know many people yet, and you seem nice. Completely platonic, just 2 colleagues being friendly. Nathan hesitated. Every instinct told him to say no, to protect himself, to not risk getting hurt again. But then he looked at Sophie's open, friendly expression, at the complete absence of manipulation or hidden agendas, at the simple human offer of connection. And he realized he had a choice. He could let Claire's betrayal define him forever, or he could choose to believe that not everyone would hurt him, that some people were exactly who they appeared to be. "I'd like that," Nathan said. "Coffee sounds good." Sophie's face broke into a genuine smile.
Great.
"Here, let me give you my number." They exchanged contact information, made vague plans to meet up later in the week, then headed to their respective cars. Nathan sat in his BMW for a moment before starting the engine, a small smile playing at his lips. Maybe his mother was right. Maybe there were good people out there who would see his value and never take it for granted. Maybe his story wasn't over, just beginning a new chapter. Do you know that you can save a soul right now by subscribing? Someone out there needs to hear this story. Needs to know that betrayal doesn't have to be the end. That you can survive, heal, and find joy again. Be that person for someone. Hit subscribe. 6 months after the divorce, Nathan had coffee with Sophie Monroe. Then dinner. Then a weekend trip to the coast that turned into something neither of them had planned, but both of them welcomed. Sophie was different from Claire in every way that mattered. She was direct, honest, incapable of playing games. When she was happy, she said so. When she was upset, she communicated it clearly. When she loved something, she showed it without reservation. And slowly, carefully, Nathan allowed himself to trust again. It wasn't easy. There were moments when old fears surfaced, when he caught himself testing her in small ways, waiting for her to reveal some hidden agenda. But Sophie met every moment with patience and understanding. She didn't run from his baggage. She helped him unpack it. "I'm not her," Sophie told him one night as they sat on his apartment balcony, watching the city lights. "I'm not going to promise I'll never hurt you, because people hurt each other sometimes even when they love each other. But I will promise that I'll never lie to you, never betray you, never make you wonder if I want you, or what you can give me." "How can you promise that?" "Because I've been where you are. Had my heart broken by someone I trusted completely. And I made myself a vow that I'd never do that to someone else. That if I couldn't love someone honestly and fully, I just wouldn't love them at all." She took his hand. "And Nathan, I love you honestly and fully."
Completely.
With no conditions attached, Nathan believed her. Not because he was naive, but because every action she'd taken, every word she'd spoken, every choice she'd made had proven it to be true. 1 year after the divorce, Nathan got a text from an unknown number. "I heard you're happy.
I'm glad.
You deserve it. Take care of yourself. See." He stared at the message for a long time, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Sadness for what had been lost. Gratitude for what he'd found. Closure for a chapter that had finally, truly ended. He typed back a simple response. "Thank you. I hope you're happy too." Then he deleted the conversation and put his phone away. Claire was his past. Sophie was his present. And somewhere out there, his future was waiting. 2 years after the divorce, Nathan Willard proposed to Sophie Monroe on a quiet Sunday morning in their shared apartment. No elaborate plan, no grand gesture. Just 2 people making breakfast together, laughing at something stupid, and Nathan suddenly knowing with absolute certainty that this was the person he wanted to spend his life with. "Marry me," he said. No ring, no preparation, just truth. Sophie set down the spatula she was holding and looked at him with those warm brown eyes. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. I know it's sudden. I know we should probably wait longer, do this properly, but I don't want to wait. I want to marry you, Sophie. I want to build a life with you. The real kind. The honest kind. The kind where we choose each other every single day." Tears filled her eyes.
Yes. God, yes.
"Of course, I'll marry you." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony surrounded by family and close friends. No elaborate production. No stress about perfection. Just 2 people promising to love each other, honestly and completely, for as long as they both lived. And this time, Nathan knew those vows were real. This time, he'd chosen someone who chose him back. Not for what he could provide, not for the comfortable life he could offer, but for who he was as a person. Someone who would stand beside him when things got hard. Someone who would love him through struggles and successes equally. Someone who saw marriage as a partnership, not a transaction. 3 years after the divorce, Nathan ran into Claire at a coffee shop downtown. He almost didn't recognize her at first. She looked different. Lighter somehow. Her hair was shorter, styled differently. She wore clothes he'd never seen before, a bohemian style that seemed more authentic than anything she'd worn during their marriage. She was with someone. A man, but not Julian. Someone new. Someone who looked at her the way Nathan used to look at her in the beginning. Their eyes met across the crowded shop, and for a moment, time suspended. Then Claire smiled. A real smile. One that said, "I'm sorry, and I'm happy, and I hope you're happy too all at once." Nathan smiled back. A smile that said, "I forgive you, and I've moved on, and I wish you well." No words were needed. No conversation necessary. They'd both found what they were looking for. Just not with each other. And that was okay. Nathan paid for his coffee, Sophie's favorite pastry, and headed home to his wife. His real wife. His forever wife. The woman who'd proven that love didn't have to be complicated or painful or built on lies. That evening, sitting on the couch with Sophie curled up beside him, Nathan thought about the man he'd been 3 years ago. The man who'd tested his wife's loyalty. The man who'd spent 30 days watching his marriage crumble. The man who'd been so afraid of being unloved that he'd nearly destroyed himself trying to find proof. He'd been through hell. But he'd come out the other side stronger, wiser, more certain of what he wanted and what he deserved. "What are you thinking about?" Sophie asked, looking up at him. "Just how lucky I am." "We're both lucky." "Yeah," Nathan agreed, kissing the top of her head. "We really are."
And he meant it.
Every word. Because sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you exactly where you need to be. Sometimes betrayal clears the path for real love. Sometimes losing everything teaches you what actually matters. Nathan had lost a wife who never truly loved him. But he'd gained a life filled with honesty, trust, and a love that didn't need to be tested because it proved itself every single day. That was the real happy ending. Not revenge, not seeing Claire suffer, not even the money or success or vindication. The happy ending was knowing he'd chosen himself. Had walked away from someone who didn't value him and found someone who did. Had refused to settle for less than he deserved. Before I leave you, I want to say something. If you're going through something similar, if you're wondering whether someone really loves you or just loves what you provide, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't make excuses for behavior that hurts you. And remember that walking away from the wrong person is the first step toward finding the right one. You deserve someone who chooses you on your worst day, who stands beside you when you have nothing, who loves you not for what you can give them, but for who you are. Don't settle for anything less. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why not? Don't you like the story? I'm kidding, but seriously, join our family. Let's keep sharing these stories that remind us we're all human, we all struggle, and we all deserve love that's real. Nathan Willard learned that lesson the hard way. Through pain, betrayal, and 30 days that changed everything. But in the end, he didn't just survive. He thrived. And so can you. Sometimes the person who walked away simply made space for the life you deserved all along.
The end.